Welcome to Conscious Conversations, a place where East meets West, a place where conversations and ideas will challenge your minds, expand your consciousness, awaken your heart, and make you think more deeply about yourself and the world.
Hello, everybody. I'm Anthony Profeta. Welcome to Conscious Conversations, and I'm here with my good friend and fellow co-host, Wes Gordon. How are you doing today, Wes?
Doing awesome. Can't wait to dive into the show today.
I know. I'm also very excited. I don't know about you, but I was really overwhelmed by all the kind comments, the feedback that we got for our first show. I got a lot of private messages through Messenger, email, about how much everybody really enjoyed it. So I'm really looking forward to continuing our conversation today.
Absolutely.
So today we thought that we'd talk a little bit or have a conversation about religion and spirituality and how really it is more of a inner experience, an inner journey, rather than sort of an outward sort of practice. And now I know I just said a trigger word, that R word, that religion. There are a lot of people that I've been accused of how can I talk about religions in such a kind, loving way when for the majority of bloodshed and the majority of problems in the world stem from religions.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard the same thing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, to me, I mean, that's not a problem with the religion. That's not a problem with the past. I mean, a path, not a past. But that's a problem with people and their hearts and minds. The Paramahansa Yogananda, who was a great spiritual guru of India, and he wrote a spiritual classic called Autobiography of a Yogi. He said, if you take Jesus, if you take Buddha, if you take Krishna and Muhammad, and you put them in a room together, they would actually see each other as brothers and share a meal. But if you put their disciples and followers in a room together, they'd all kill each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, we've sort of seen that throughout history. And I think that is one of the main problems, is the fact that these great spiritual beings and these great teachers of the different faiths, they had an inner experience in which they felt something within themselves that was greater probably than any experience we can have in this outer world. What's your take on that?
Well, yes. We're playing with the scriptures. You know, it says the kingdom of heaven is within.
Right.
It also says, in lieu of meditation, be still and know that I'm God.
Right.
So that's in the quietness. That's in the pause. And I agree with what you said about the religions. I hope that, you know, part of my mission is to tone down and demystify that message that the original message, I feel like, got hijacked. And then there's a lot of politics and stuff that came in on top of it. And I don't think that's necessary. I think the true essence of it is to empower you to have a more eventful life. And we're going to show you different ways and techniques and tools that you can explore and do that exact thing. And you don't have to be connected to so-called religion to do this. I've had people ask me, Anthony, what church do you go to, Wes?
Right.
I stop and go, I go to the church that Jesus went to.
Mm.
There's just silence. What do you mean? Think about it.
Right. Oh, yeah. Kingdom of God is within us. All of those sort of quotes, and I can rattle off a bunch, but what I find interesting is that even this word religion, the word means R-E, again, and the other part of that comes from the Latin, which is ligare, which means to bind or to tie together. So it means binding again or tying again. And what these paths and purposes of religions are trying to do is really to rebind us with the essence that many of the traditions call God, or your soul, or your Atman, or this essence within you that is beyond your physical flesh and blood nature. So religion is trying to bind you again to that, which is the same thing that yoga is trying to do. This word yoga means to unite or to bring together. And what they're trying to do through the practices of yoga is reunite one with their soul, their true self, or come to self-realization. Even the word tantra. Now, some people hear tantra, though, especially here in the United States, and they think like Sting and his wife doing these sort of in the dark, sexual practices. But true tantra, white tantra, is spiritual practices. And the word tantra means weaving or to loom together. And with those practices, they're doing the same thing that religion or yoga is trying to do. They're trying to bind you again or reconnect you to this essence that we feel disconnected from. Not that we're ever truly disconnected from that. We wouldn't be alive if we were disconnected or separate from it. But we sort of have become forgetful of the connection. And so these practices are trying to reawaken us to that connection. And so the fruit of spiritual practices and the fruit of religion is within you. It's an inner experience, and religion and spirituality is really meant to lead all of us into this realization of who and what we truly are, beyond the labels of, hi, I'm Anthony, or, I'm a meditation teacher, or anything like that. Those are just labels that are applied to who am I really? And for thousands of years, we've been told to know thyself, but they mean on the deepest level. And that's truly why I can profess a understanding for all religions, because if Christianity brought St. Francis closer to the realization of his connection with God, or St. Teresa of Avila, or St. John of the Cross, it brought them closer to God, or if Judaism had brought, like Moses and all these other people closer to God, and if the Muslim faith has brought Rumi and Kabir and all of these other people closer to God, then in truth, there is a purpose and a great point to them, but they have to be practiced correctly. Going back to Paramahansa Yogananda's quote about the founders seeing each other as equals, the problem is that many people are practicing, I would say, incorrectly by thinking, oh, my path is better than yours. And that right there creates the separation and problems that we see with religion in the world.
Yeah, the authoritative part of it. You got to follow these certain set of rules, or you're not good enough, or you don't measure up. And I know for a fact that it's way beyond that. The divine essence that we have inside of us, that's what you're speaking of. That's the most important part of our actual lives, but we overlook it, especially with the pace of today.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Absolutely. And just to share that all of these great traditions have really taught the same thing. We mentioned one of them, but Christ's entire teaching and mission was that seek first the kingdom of God. And where is that, he said, but it's within you. So go within yourself, look within yourself. So his whole teaching was to turn from the outer world to the inner world. The Hindus and some of their great writings and teachings, like the BhagavadGita or the Upanishads, they said that the self, your inner essence, is Brahman or God. You are one with that essence, made in the image and likeness of God, according to the Bible itself. Within Buddhism, they say that your Buddha nature, your true self, exists within you in potential, but we have to cultivate that. It's like a flower that we need to really let grow and develop. And Rumi, who's a Sufi or a Muslim, he said that I looked in mosques, I looked in churches, and I looked in synagogues and temples, but I found God within my own heart. And all of them, Leo Tolstoy, the author and Russian writer, he said that don't see God in temples, don't see God without, for the kingdom of God is within you, also quoting Jesus.
Yes.
And St. Augustine or St. Augustine, in his own autobiography, which is a great spiritual classic also called Confessions, if any of you are interested, it's a great read. But he has said that I erred in seeking thee without, O God, for thou art within. And so all of these great teachings, they say that. Even St. Paul in his letter of Corinthians says, don't you know that you are temples of God and his spirit is within you? So sometimes people struggle with that understanding of it being an inner job or an inner vision, but that's really where we were always told it all begins.
Absolutely. And I think that's what today people are starving for, is that power of being able to access that part of themselves. And at least from my upbringing, a lot of the organizations put you in so much guilt and judgment and fear that you're not doing the right things that you kind of lose the essence of the message.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, I've done a 360 back to that original message. And the love and the depth of that experience and living in that energy it's awesome. And when you can see the miracles happening that you didn't have anything to do with, they just showed up. And people would call it synchronicity or coincidence. But no, there's a bigger thing happening once you align with that energy. And most of us aren't taught that that's even available or you can do that. Or if it is, there's so many rules about how you have to do that it scares the average person off. It's not necessary.
Absolutely. But I think we have to pause here for a brief message. But when we come back, we'll continue this conversation. We'll also share maybe some tools and tricks with you, or I shouldn't say tricks, but methods that are able to help you connect to that essence that is within all of us. So thank you all, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Easy Brew.
Hello and welcome back to Conscious Conversations. I'm here with Anthony Profeta, and I'm here with my co-host Wes Gordon, and we're talking about the inner journey of spirituality and religions. And we mentioned that we sort of hit a trigger point with that R word, but we also hit a trigger point with another word that we've been using a lot today, and that's the God word.
Yes.
A lot of people become triggered by that. But we want them to understand that we're not talking about some man with a long white beard on some cloud somewhere. We're talking about an essence that is sort of within us all, in which we are made in the image and likeness of, how that all traditions and all paths have taught that if we turn our senses from the outer and turn them towards the inner world, that we can actually experience this directly and come to know that essence that many traditions have called God for thousands of years. And there are many ways to do that. There's many spiritual practices which turn you inwards and help you to find that. And one that's my favorite, I'm sure you're well aware, is the practice or art of meditation. And but how about we talk a little bit about prayer and meditation, because both of those can be ways to turn within ourselves. And I know you have a whole deep knowledge on this idea of prayer and what it really is and what it might not be. So how about you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, my whole concept of the God, the God, started changing, over time about how that works.
Yeah.
And if you're praying to something, what is it actually that you're praying to? And as that started to shift and change, I started learning, like you said, the kingdom of heaven is within, and we can access that energy. And God changed from being a Santa Claus with a wish list to be a personal inner energy that actually works through you. And I use the analogy like a seed.
Right.
You have everything in you for your divinity. It just has to be nurtured and expressed and realized.
And how did that make you feel when you went from the change of the outer to trying to discover it within yourself?
At first, it was hard because I was programmed really well at a young age. I mean, that wasn't the definition I had of God at all.
Right.
Now I have an acronym for it, which is Guidance on Divinity,
Oh,
GOD.
I love that.
Yeah, because that divinity is within you. And that's why, when Christ was walking around, he upset the status quo because he was saying, your righteousness has to exceed the scribes and Pharisees. Well, those were the religious systems of that day, and they were strict.
Yeah.
If you study the Jewish faith, they lived right to the letter of the law.
Right.
He was saying you have to be more than that. It's like, wow. So when I started going within, things started shifting and changing. But it took for me personal tragedy to get me to that corner in my room where I did decide, instead of praying, let's try silence.
Yeah.
Well, let's just see if God speaks.
That was my biggest thing, was silence. know, and I teach many different methods of meditation, but I truly feel that silence is one of the most profound, because silence is not silent.
Exactly.
There's a deep wisdom. There's a voice there, but it's very quiet. You know, it's said that I didn't find God, and this is the prophet Elijah, I didn't find him in the thunder and the lightning and the storms. I found him in the still, small voice within.
Yes.
And again, going back to one of the verses that you had thrown out earlier, the whole idea of be still and know that I am God. Yeah. And in the silence, in the stillness, which I believe meditation is really about, is cultivating that. You know, before someone takes up this path to try and concentrate their mind, focus their mind, our mind is very busy. It's jumping from this thought to that thought. And if we've ever taken the time to truly be aware of our mind, look at our mind, we notice it jumps from thoughts of the past to thoughts of the future, to something that happened 15 years ago, to something that we got to do later in the day. And there seems to be no rhyme or reason, but it's just so busy in there. It's so chaotic in there. And when it's very busy, we can't hear that still small voice.
Absolutely.
So through meditation, we learn to quiet that busyness, calm it down, so that that voice can come through more clearly and have the direct realization that everything is right there within us. Now, I do believe prayer and meditation go hand in hand, because I believe that communing with our inner divinity, the God, soul, that it's a dialogue or a conversation just like we're having. You know, one side can't be talking all the time. It has to go back and forth. So I believe that prayer is the talking aspect, and then the meditation is the quieting and listening for the God or the, you know, spirit to talk back to you.
Yes, and I want to make a real defining point. I don't go around thinking that I am God as a human being.
Right.
A lot of people go around saying, well, I'm God. Well, if you are, create a planet. It ain't happening. It's when you go into that silence and you're so sincere and humbled, and you hear a voice speak back to you.
Yes.
I am God. That's when you heard the right channel. The other one's just your little God, the ego.
Yes, it's spiritual pride.
Yes.
Because even Christ himself said the Father is greater than I, which means by default, he knew that there was a greater power that was moving through him than that was him. And that whole idea that, well, I am God. I mean, there is a quote that Jesus references in the Gospel of John where he does quote the Psalms, in which it says, you are gods, all of you children of the Most High. And if you read it, it's not you are gods like G-O-D apostrophe S, like we're God's possession. It's actually you are gods, G-O-D. But if you look at it, it's not the same word that is used for God, capital G-O-D. It's like a lowercase G-O-D. So it's like you are gods, but just, you know, in a minute little form. So as you said, you know, if you really believe that you are the G-O-D God, you do have an essence of that within you. You're created in the image and likeness of it, but go create that galaxy, go create that universe.
All right.
Now, we are co-creators of our lives through what we do, how we act, speak, and the thoughts that we think. But to reference ourselves as the God.
Foolishness.
Yes.
You're being very foolish.
Very foolish, because as we said, even Jesus himself said the Father is greater. And when asked when the end of the world was, he even referenced, that's not for me, I don't know, only the Father knows these things.
Right.
So he was referencing indirectly that he's not the G-O-D God.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And accessing that part of yourselves and expressing it in a loving, kind way, I think that's one of our main missions, why we're even here.
Right.
But we get caught up in the self-improvement and all that other stuff that I got to make it happen. I got to control the world and make things like it should be. And there's an easier way. And you and I both know this. Once you tap into that energy, things align and lay out for you. Your job is to be aware, hyper aware and vigilant. And the rest just plays out.
Yeah. And just surrender to that.
Yes. Big surrender.
Yeah, and we're probably going to have to continue this actual conversation, because we can expand on so much that we talked about right now, because people are going to start thinking, well, if I'm not God, but I'm made in the image and likeness of God, well, then what am I? What is this essence that I connect to that is within me if it's not God? But, it is a the essence of God. Life itself, the creativeness and life force that moves through everything, that flows through us and flows through the world and is creating galaxies and stars. That's the same life that is giving rise to us. But, when the spiritual ego and spiritual pride carries in, that's where we have to be careful of things.
Yes, it's that energy that makes your blood flow and your heart beat, and you don't think about it at all.
Yep.
It's there.
It's just there, and it just does its thing.
Yes.
And the more we try to surrender to that and not control everything, the more we're in line and in flow with that.
Absolutely.
But I think we're going to have to end here for today. I hope you all enjoyed our conversation. We really would love to expand more on this. So if you're not part of the Conscious Conversations Facebook community, please go there, join it. You can comment, you can share your thoughts, you can let us know what you think about these topics that we've been discussing today. Voice your opinion. We'd love to carry on these conversations outside of the show. And so we've created that community for you to join in these conversations with us. Also, if you're not connected to me on social media, on Facebook or Instagram, please follow us on anthonyprofeta.com. And you can find Wes on Facebook as well. You can also go to anthonyprofeta.com and find anything you might need to know on meditation. And if you want to learn any methods or practices, be sure to, find any of the blog posts that I've written, or you can connect with me directly and we can maybe find that method that's best and right for you. But we will each and every week be talking more about topics such as this. So you can find us at on Buzz TV on Xfinity channel 1098 if you're in Indian River County, and you can also find us on Real Radio 101.7, which we air on Sundays every 2:30 in the afternoon. And Buzz TV is 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., repeated at 8 p.m. every Tuesday. So we thank you all. We appreciate all of you. We really love each and every one of you. We thank you for watching. We thank you for listening. And we really look forward to continuing these conversations next week.